But then always very serious when it came to basketball.
He was very serious. He came to basketball late all the time, 1 hour before the game. The rule is an hour and a half. He just couldn't get there an hour and a half before the game. He was too active. So he'd come there, he'd say, you know, I don't have to shoot. You know, I don't do any shooting, so I don't need to go out and do shooting. So he'd come to the game, and he'd get on a bicycle, and he would do weights while he was on a bicycle. He'd work up a total sweat in about 20 minutes. He never taped. He never went through a taping process, so he didn't have to do anything like that. And then he'd take a shower. We'd have our meetings 30 minutes before game time. So in the 30 minutes he was there, he had worked out, and then he would take a shower, and he'd come out and he'd sit naked in his chair with just a towel over his head. While the coaches and myself would go through the plan of the attack for the game. It's a big distraction.
I got nothing. Who's the best coach you played for or worked for?
There's a lot of things I write in this book about Red Holzman.
Yep.
He was a great manager of people. He was a coach that never diagrammed a play, but I say that he would move salt shakers around on the table. If you give him enough salt shakers, they would represent the players on the floor, and he could move those around like chess pieces. But he never diagrammed plays. He never put chalk on the floor and diagrammed things. He always asked me to go to the board if there was something I remembered from what this team did in the past. But he managed people extremely well, and you know, just the little things he did. We had a rule. He put a rule in about riding on the team bus, and a lot of players moved freely at that time in the late '60s because of the war, and guys were in the reserves and the National Guard, and they had weekend warrior duties that they would run off to and do. And so there's a lot of freedom, and some guys drove from New York to Philadelphia before he became the coach, and they drive back to New York. But he always wanted guys to go on the bus. But Cazzie Russell, one of our players, kind of defied it and drove down on his own. And Red, when he came in the locker room, Red walked over to him and said, "Hey, Cazzie, how much did it cost you to get down here in tolls and bridges?" As he went through the New Jersey Turnpike and the Midtown Tunnel and the Franklin Bridge, and he went like, I don't know, $7, $8, something like that. Deduct that from the fine you just got, you know. So he would kind of couch things in a way that end up not humiliating the guy, but having a way to kind of emphasize his point. Okay, you got fined, but take those $7 off the total.
Well, there's that Glenn Miller anecdote you have in the book.
That's a funny one, too.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
You have to read about that.
You have to buy the book to know that one. This was actually on my list, so I'm glad this was asked. Is there a player that you never got to coach that you wish you could have?
Oh, there's a lot of players, you know, that you look at and you admire their heart, their capabilities, their skills that they have. But I wouldn't want to enumerate any of them, you know.
Did you ever successfully turn Michael Jordan onto the music of Jerry Garcia?
No, I did not.
You know, there's a big chunk in this book about Phil's relationship with Jerry Krause that I actually found fascinating myself, having known both men. And last summer I got to spend 3 days with Jerry, kind of writing a story about what makes him tick at the age of 73, still out there beating the bushes of minor league baseball as a scout with 6 NBA championships in his background. What jumped out to me was that you're very complimentary of Jerry throughout this book. And I think that your relationship, or the deterioration thereof, was probably a little bit overstated. My take on it, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that your personalities were very different, but your vision and your professionalism and your working towards a common goal was similar. Would that be a fair assessment?
That's a very good assessment. And, you know, right up until the end, we worked well together. Jerry just that last year said, I don't care if you win 82 games. You know, this is your last year. Jerry Reinsdorf, however, asked me to come back and coach. And, you know, that I just told Jerry that I just felt our relationship had deteriorated such that for me to come back would be too difficult for Jerry Krause because he was looking forward to rebuilding a team again, and we were losing, maybe 6 or 7 players from that team. So I know how hard it is to, so many people in Chicago said we could have continued to win. Yes, maybe. That year was a lockout year. Michael eventually, I think, cut his finger badly that year afterwards. He did come back to play finally with Washington later. Scottie Pippen was gone, Luke Longley, Steve Kerr,
Judd Buechler.
Yeah, just Tony and Harper were 2 of the guys that were left from that group. So it really was dissolving. And, we had a wonderful time as a team for 3 years, and we really appreciated it.
You write in the book that the Isaiah Thomas-led boycott of the no handshake in the '91 conference finals when you swept the Pistons still bothers you to this day. I find that interesting, and why do you think that is?
There's a certain sense of sportsmanship that you have to have in this game. You have to recognize, we'd lost 3 times in a row to the Detroit Pistons. We'd lost early, we'd lost in 6 games, we lost in 7 games. We lost in the first round, we lost in the second round, we lost in the finals of the East. Progressively, we were creeping up on them until we finally overcame them, and when we did, we swept them. And I think it was a bitter pill for them, but yet there's that thing of, they went through that with the Boston Celtics.
Right.
They had gone through the same process. It's a process that happens in the NBA, and your teams become playoff hardened, and they became capable of doing this. And at that time, that year we also beat the Lakers, and Magic Johnson was ultimately very congratulatory and very warm, and your turn, a great run. We had a good run here this year, but congratulations to you. And I thought that's the way to do it. That was the way. Yeah.
That first three-peat obviously had that experience of trying to break through that Pistons stronghold. That to me almost makes the 95-96 record-setting team and then the second three-peat even more impressive because they did not have that foundation on which to jump from. And there's also so many new players. Does that stand out to you from that 95-96 team, which had to be, it's the greatest team in NBA history. It had to be your best team you've ever coached.
Yeah, that was a transcendent team. And I say that because it was a team that changed basketball format. Everybody is kind of looking for a point guard. They're looking for that Chris Paul, Isaiah Thomas type guard that can lead. We went with 2 big guards. We went with, Scottie Pippen and Ron Harper. Steve Kerr off the bench was our small guard at 6'3". And we did that because we knew Shaquille and Orlando Magic were the team that were the future in the East, and we had to make this change. So our end-game team became, Harper, Pippen, Jordan, Tony Kukoc, and Dennis Rodman playing whoever had to be played as a big man down there defensively. Tony Kukoc could play power forward. He might take a center that was ineffective at scoring. So we had a team that anybody could play any position. Anybody could advance the basketball. And everybody was capable of score except Dennis Rodman.
We got about a minute left, so real quick, how are you liking Twitter so far?
Yeah, it's a weird world out there. You have to have a thick skin, but it's like out there, one for one, all for all type of thing. It really is a trial of how to put humor and short phrases into words, and I like it. I think it's kind of fun.
And a little bird whispered to me that you don't follow too many people, but you actually follow a certain current Bulls player. Do you care to reveal who that person is?
That's Joe Kim, yeah, Noah.
He's got some weird stuff on there. Well, we'd like to obviously thank Phil Jackson for coming out tonight.